So next, we have some Megadeth news, and Megadeth has been making a lot of news recently. They recently put out an album called The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead, which a lot of people have really enjoyed. We've done a couple of reaction videos for the two videos that they've released thus far. Third one coming soon. So there's that sort of news, and then there's the ongoing news in regards to the relationship between founding members Dave Ellefson, who was the original bassist of Megadeth, and Dave Mustaine, lead singer and guitarist of Megadeth. So really, and there's conflicting accounts because, the recent news, Dave has accused Ellefson of trying to poach the Megadeth song Kingmaker. And then at the same time, Dave Ellefson has come back saying that Dave Mustaine was abusive to him and that he feels that he's been kicked out of hell, meaning I guess now he's better off or something like that. And Dave Ellefson, to give him credit, man, that guy has been able to stay in the news considering he was fired by Megadeth about a year ago. I've done a whole video on this, but just the quick story in case you don't know. Dave Ellefson, he was at an autograph signing and he decided just upon meeting this 17-year-old Dutch teen, you know what? I think we'd be good fucking friends. How about that? Why don't you give me your contact info? Because in the moment it took me to sign my name, it became clear to me that you were so cool that we should be buddies. So now 54-year-old Dave Ellefson and then the, at the time, 17-year-old Dutch teen maintained an online friendship for 2 years. That's normal, right? For 54-year-olds and 17-year-olds to be able to be buddies and get together on the same mental plane, right? That's nothing weird about that. It's not like he's trying to fuck her, right? Well, they started having, mutual masturbation sessions, and she got screen caps of Dave Ellefson jacking his old pecker off and jiggling his balls around, everything that comes with it, She starts showing this video to her homies like it's a cool thing. Her buddies are like, dude, this guy's 56 years old. That's fucking gross. And they put him on blast, and it cost Ellefson his job in Megadeth. He was fired. Now, Ellefson came out, said, listen, we're just, adults and all that shit. Ellefson married also with children, by the way. But listen, we're consenting adults. And, the video I made about this, where we talk more in depth, I will admit I didn't have all the details. It was just sort of happening at the time. As time has gone on, now with a year in the rearview mirror, my view has not necessarily changed. When I first made that video, it wasn't clear if there was any actual fucking or anything going on. It's, I got a million comments from a bunch of wannabe tough old guys and incels and shit like that, all telling me how, listen, he didn't break any laws or anything like that. My issue was never that he broke laws. My issue was that he's a fucking creep. If you're a 56-year-old and you can maintain a friendship for years with a Dutch teenager, you're a fucking creep, because there's no way those two people would ever come together to be friends in any scenario that doesn't end with his dick in her body. And that's what he was trying to set up. And he was accused of grooming, which he did, and that cost him his job. And he's come out and tried to make himself the fucking victim. He's even said he knows what Jesus felt like. Can you imagine? That gives you a peek into this fucking idiot's psyche. Jesus was persecuted. You were called out on being a creepy fuck. And you're showing your dick to 19-year-olds, jacking off on the regular with 19-year-olds. You're a creepy fuck. And that's just what's up. And Dave Mustaine saw that. You could see the writing on the wall. On top of it, it seems Dave Mustaine did not like this motherfucker in the first place. So he said, listen, buddy, you gotta fucking go. So Dave Ellefson shit canned. He's been trying to put out music. He's been doing whatever the fuck he can to keep himself in the media. Now, the two of them have these conflicting accounts. Dave Ellefson says he was on a podcast and he was talking about how Dave doesn't accept any collaboration, and that Dave has become a tyrant in terms of the way he runs Megadeth, claiming that he runs it with a fucking iron fist like goddamn Dr. Doom. And so here's a quote from Dave Ellefson. He says, and knowing how things had been in the past, Dave will start with something, bring an idea, and maybe someone says, hey, that's cool. How about we add this little bit here? Or maybe that riff goes with this riff. And I said, hey, I've got something that might go with that. Dave immediately took his guitar off and walked in the office. I looked at Sean Drover, who is a former Megadeth drummer, and Sean and Chris are just shaking their heads. I said, what the hell was that all about? He goes, dude, trust me, the days of collaborating are long gone. That Megadeth that you were in, that's way over. Now, at the same time, Dave Mustaine, who's pissed off, claiming that that Ellefson was trying to poach songs, his words, he was talking about how he's been more open to collaboration on this most recent album, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead. And he was asked about the fact that the band's lead guitarist, Kiko Loureiro, had gotten songwriting credit on 8 of the 12 tracks, which that sounds like a guy who's collaborating. But when asked about that, Dave Mustaine said, and I quote, I think a lot of that had to do with my being willing to open up my songwriting process to allow another player to get inside that circle. There's my songwriting process, and then there's his, and then what we do together. And sometime I don't want anybody coming into my songwriting process and changing a riff. That sounds like a guy who admittedly says sometimes, you know, my shit is my shit and don't fuck with it. But at the same time, the fact that he is giving songwriting credits and saying he is open to hearing some shit if anybody wants to add this or that. Now, Dave Ellefson has come back and said that he feels that was more about Dave Mustaine having specific beef with him. So Dave Ellefson claims that during the recording of The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead, Dave Mustaine had to go away for cancer treatment. While he was out, the band worked on some stuff. So when Dave came back, he was fucking furious. Ellefson claims that the album's producer kind of stepped up for everybody and said, hey man, you know what? It was my idea. The guys are here. We're just looking to get the record done. Ellefson says, and I quote, I could see it coming. I knew he was going to see what parts I wrote and take them out, which he did. He took all my parts off the record, of which there were several, and either rewrote them or changed them just to make sure that I wouldn't have any writing on the record. And I just saw it coming. I rolled my eyes and whatever. Now, when you go back to what Dave Mustaine has said, referring to what he called Ellefson trying to poach a song, Mustaine says, and I quote, I came in one morning and Johnny K was in there working on a song named Kingmaker. Kingmaker was done and I came in there and I heard Ellefson and Johnny K in there recording a part at the beginning of the song. And it was nothing to do with the song. It had nothing. The riff wasn't in the record anywhere. And I came in and I said, what are you two doing? And he says they were trying to like struggle to come up with the right words. He says, you know, trying to explain, I'm going to fucking poach your song and I'm going to put one of my riffs in front of the song. And it was so pathetic. I just felt so sorry for the two of them. I just said, go ahead, leave it in there. But if you listen to Kingmaker tonight when you go home, you're going to hear the beginning of the song. There's a really dumbass part in there, and that's it. So it almost seems like what Ellefson was referring to in terms of being abusive is what Mustaine is referring here as well. And Mustaine is admitting that he came in and said, hey, what the fuck's going on? And he heard it. He thought it sucked, but he left it in there anyway. Dave Ellefson is saying, oh, he took all my parts off. Dave Mustaine says one of his parts is there. It's fucking stupid. If you have to look at these two accounts, you know, Judge Judy would always say, if you have two people's accounts, you kind of land somewhere in the middle. That's where the truth lies. So if that's the case, it would make sense that what Ellefson is saying is true to some extent, but the abuse is just his perception. But I believe Dave Mustaine far more, just because you can say what you want about the guy, but you can't say that he doesn't have any integrity. And I don't feel he's the type of guy who's going to come out and just lie. Of course, this is through his lens. So I would think the answer, once again, lies somewhere in the middle. Based on how Ellefson reacted to the whole thing, the whole jack-off video thing, it's clear he's the type of guy who always makes himself the victim. I mean, as I said earlier, the guy, he compared himself to Jesus Christ. That's how persecuted he felt for something that he did, which was entirely fucked up and creepy. I haven't seen anything where he admits to any wrongdoing whatsoever, not even acknowledging that it's fucked up. And when he got busted, he blamed everyone but himself. It was everybody else's fault. At no point did he say, man, I was fucked up for befriending a 17-year-old who looked up to me, and I took advantage of that, and I used it to get her to send me to do like mutual masturbation Zooms or whatever the fuck it was. Ellefson's version of the story is very like, woe is me. And listen, man, I'm not, but whatever. It was like being in hell, but whatever. He is a little bee sometimes, and he shows that. He's a snivelly, mealy-mouthed fuck, and in my opinion, of course, I'm sure this is not the last time that Dave Mustaine and Dave Ellefson are going to give conflicting accounts of shit. And I'm sure it's not the last time that Dave Ellefson is going to come out and say something fucking stupid. So when that happens, we'll get back to it. So until then, moving on.